You're 31 years old and you're low-key a genius at moving stuff. Not like action movie style or whatever. We're talking freight, containers, paperwork, customs forms, tariff codes, boring stuff that somehow pays crazy good. You work for this mid-sized logistics shop out of Dubai, and your whole thing is figuring out the quickest legal path between a seller and a buyer when the red tape is about to clown on the whole deal. You're not shady, you're careful. Those are totally different things, and for most of your career, that difference actually matters. Your client list has got a pharma distributor out of Karachi, a German auto parts company trying to break into Central Asia, and a bunch of Gulf trading outfits that need somebody who gets how to move goods through different countries without customs losing their minds. You're not the priciest consultant in Dubai, you're just the one who never drops the ball. That rep is worth more than the paycheck, and the paycheck is already no joke. So you're sitting at your desk at 9 at night, grinding through some reclassification beef on a shipment of industrial lubricants when your phone goes off. You recognize the number but haven't heard from it in like 2 years. It's this dude named Farouk, not his real name, obviously, who used to run medical equipment through your firm before he just ghosted your client list with zero explanation. You pick up because you're nosy, and being nosy has always been your one weakness you let slide. He's like, "You alone?" You say, "Yeah." He goes, "He needs to link up." Says he's got a client with a situation only you can handle, and the bag for handling it is more than you make in a whole year. You tell him straight up you're not trying to catch a case or lose your license. He says the license isn't even what he's worried about protecting. He says it in this way where you just get it. This meeting isn't actually optional. 2 days later, you're in a hotel suite in Abu Dhabi. The guy chilling next to Farouk doesn't get introduced. Dude's pushing 50-something, rocking a suit that costs more than your rent for months. He's got the accent of a country that's currently getting absolutely cooked by international sanctions, banks frozen, oil embargoed, flagged by like 4 different Western governments as basically the bad guy of global finance. He slides a folder across the table. Inside is a shopping list: medical equipment, electrical components, farm machinery, aviation spare parts, wheat, and not like small amounts either. He says his country needs this stuff just to keep the lights on, that people are literally dying because they can't get dialysis machines, and insulin needs refrigeration, and his government sent him to find someone who can build a pipeline to get these goods over the wall the whole world built around them. You slide the folder back. He slides it right back and hits you with your full government name. Then your mom's address in Amman. Then the name of the school your little sister teaches at. He doesn't threaten you. He just knows things, which is actually worse than a threat because there's no ceiling on it. You sit with that for a hot minute and then you pick up the folder and start reading. That's how it kicks off. 6 weeks in and you've figured out what he actually needs isn't some old school smuggling operation. Ain't no boats in the dark, no tunnels, no envelopes under the table. What he needs is straight up architecture. A whole system of legit looking companies spread across enough countries that no single transaction looks like what it actually is. You need shell companies in Oman, the UAE, Georgia, and Serbia. You need freight forwarders who don't ask questions and invoice in ways that bury who's actually getting the goods. You need re-export certs, faked end-user declarations, commodity reclassifications that shuffle banned goods into legal-looking categories. You need bankers, and you need them in spots where the correspondent banking setup has enough holes that wire transfers can bounce around without tripping any swift alarms. And above everything else, you need every single person in this chain to have more to gain from keeping their mouth shut than from spilling. You spent a decade learning exactly how legit trade works. You spend the next 6 months learning every single spot where you can make it look legit when it ain't. First shipment is 50 tons of wheat routed through a Turkish middleman who invoices it as animal feed, headed for Azerbaijan. It clears. No drama. Second is a batch of replacement turbine parts relabeled as general mechanical stuff, shipped through a Serbian trading company to a Georgian free trade zone, then forwarded under a fresh manifest to some port that's too understaffed to actually check anything. That clears too. By the time you've run 8 operations, you've clocked something important. This system works not because it's invisible, but because global trade is so absolutely massive that no enforcement agency has the bandwidth to actually look at most of it. You're not dodging surveillance. You're just hiding in the noise. The government pays on time, every time. The money comes through a whole layered thing you designed yourself. A Cyprus holding company that gets paid by a Lebanese trading entity, that gets paid by a Qatari investment vehicle whose actual owners are buried behind nominee directors in the British Virgin Islands. You get paid in chunks, always delayed. And the delay is basically a leash they never have to explain out loud. You never see the full balance on any operation until the goods land and get verified. That's how they stay in control without ever actually saying so. By the end of year 1, you're running like $40 million in trade every every quarter. Most of the goods are dual use, stuff you can buy anywhere on the planet, but that this particular country can't have because of who their government is and what their government's been on. You tell yourself this on repeat. The goods are commercially available. The people getting them aren't soldiers. You're not moving weapons. You're moving water treatment chemicals and ventilator parts and grain. Then they ask you to move something else. It comes through Farouk. He sets up a meet in Istanbul and slides you a new list. This stuff isn't medical equipment. We're talking specialized semiconductors, precision optical components, and a type of industrial lathe used to machine parts that can go either civilian or military. No way around it. The end-use certificate he shows you claims some civilian electronics manufacturer as the buyer. You know that company doesn't exist the way the paperwork says it does. You sit with this for 3 days. You know what these components can do. You also know that if you bounce at this point, you're not just a consultant who passed on a deal. You're a liability who knows everything about $40 million per quarter in sanctions busting infrastructure. The math isn't hard, and hating yourself for running it fast doesn't change the answer. You say yes, but you rebuild the routing. You throw in 3 more middlemen. You split the shipment into 9 separate consignments moving through different corridors on different schedules. Part of it's to stay low-key. Part of it is to give yourself more spots where you can plausibly play dumb if it all goes sideways. You clock that the difference between operational security and just building yourself an alibi has become your whole decision-making framework now. And that's not who you were 4 years ago. All 9 consignments clear. By year 2, you've got 63 entities spread across 19 countries, 7 freight forwarding companies, 4 customs clearance agents, 2 banks running outside SWIFT, a growing list of people in government procurement offices across 3 transit countries who stay cooperative because you're routing payments to them through a consulting retainer setup that exists entirely on paper. You run all of this off a laptop out of hotel rooms and airport lounges. No office, no business cards, a burner phone that gets swapped every 45 days, and an encrypted comm setup some government tech guy put together for you that you don't totally understand and therefore don't totally trust. You think about exposure constantly, not like the abstract getting arrested kind, more like the specific tactical which link in the chain is most likely to snap kind. Every person you work with is a potential snitch. Every customs agent who took a payment has leverage over you the second someone with bigger authority offers them a better deal. You keep a mental map of the whole network's weak spots, and you spend as much time managing those as you do actually running operations. You pay people not just to cooperate, but to stay scared, and you're not always proud of how you pull that off. There's a freight forwarder in Tbilisi named Georgie, who handles like 12% of your total volume. Year 3, you find out through a contact in Georgian customs that Georgie got approached by some American trade compliance investigator playing the role of a corporate due diligence consultant. You don't know if Georgie said anything or what he's willing to say. You've got 72 hours to move. You can cut him off completely, which kills the liability, but tanks 12% of your quarterly volume and tips him off that you already know about the contact, which might push him to act faster. You can have somebody go talk to him directly, which opens up a whole different can of problems. Or you can just watch. You watch for 48 hours. Then you have Farouk drop a payment to Georgie, a fat one, framed as a performance bonus on a recent shipment, timed to hit the morning before his next scheduled sit-down with the investigator. It's not a bribe in the direct sense. It's a reminder of what he's got to lose. It's also a flex that you know his schedule. Georgie cancels the meeting. 2 weeks later, he hits you through the regular channel asking about a compliance issue on one of the shipments. The question is routine. The fact that he's still asking you questions is the answer you needed. This is the part that's hardest to square with yourself in the quiet moments. You're not moving weapons, but you're using financial pressure and implied surveillance to stop a dude in Tbilisi from cooperating with an investigation. And that dude has a family. And you know this because you know everything about everyone in your network, because knowing everything is literally how you survive inside it. The line between running a tight operation and just straight up coercion blurred out so long ago, you stopped trying to find it. Year 3, the government comes back with a bigger ask. They want you to start moving oil revenues, not the actual oil, the financial flows from selling sanctioned crude to buyers in Asia who buy it at a discount through a chain of middlemen designed to hide where it came from. This is a different beast from moving goods. Money is more dangerous than freight because money leaves fingerprints in ways that physical stuff, once it lands, doesn't. Financial forensics is on a whole other level compared to trade forensics. The risk profile goes way up. You spend 2 months mapping the architecture before you agree. You build it around a network of crypto conversion points, not Bitcoin, too hot, but privacy-focused coins that don't have a public ledger, combined with Hawala networks in the Gulf that move equivalent value without actually moving currency across borders in ways that trigger any reporting. The volumes aren't crazy by global standards, but they're enough for what the government needs, and the system works. This is when you start to actually grasp the full scale of what you've built. You're not running a black market in the movie sense. You're running the economic life support of a country of 40 million people. The government needs foreign currency to pay civil servants, import food, keep the power grid up, stop the whole infrastructure from collapsing, and taking regular people down with it. You tell yourself this on repeat. You also know the government you're keeping alive isn't spending every dollar on hospitals. Some portion of what you're moving funds things you don't let yourself calculate too precisely. The question of whether you're helping people or helping a regime that hurts people is one you stopped asking out loud because the answer is always both, and that doesn't resolve into a clean call one way or the other. Somewhere in year 4, you start noticing things going sideways around the edges. 2 of your Serbian shell companies get information requests from the local financial intelligence unit. The requests are standard on the surface, but the timing, both dropping in the same week, smells like coordination, not coincidence. A shipment of electronic components you routed through a Malaysian middleman gets held at the destination port for an inspection that should have been 3 days and stretches to 3 weeks with no explanation. A contact inside one of your Gulf trading companies tells you someone claiming to work for a European financial crimes task force has been sniffing around the company's beneficial ownership. None of this is a smoking gun on its own, but together it's starting to look like a pattern. You've been in this long enough to know that investigations at this scale don't move fast. The gap between the start of a targeting operation and an actual enforcement action can be years. You also know that gap isn't guaranteed, and you can't know where in the cycle you currently are. You start thinking about exit, not in a panic. Panic is expensive, but strategically, the way you think about everything. You start keeping records, not to confess, not to cooperate, but to build something that, if the moment ever calls for it, shows the coercive nature of how you got pulled into this in the first place. You keep this stuff on a drive, stored nowhere near anything connected to your actual work. You start quietly trimming the most exposed parts of the network, rerouting volume toward newer, cleaner structures. You do it slow enough that it doesn't raise any flags from the government client. Farouk clocks it anyway. He calls and says the client is concerned about reduced throughput on certain corridors and wants to understand what's going on operationally. You tell him you're doing routine risk management because of the increased global scrutiny on UAE-based trading entities after a recent FATF assessment. That's true. It's also not the whole story. Farouk says the client gets it, but wants reassurance that overall capacity stays up. You give him that reassurance. You don't know if you actually mean it. There's some alternate version of your life where you were never that good at this, where Farouk never called, or you didn't pick up, or you pushed that folder back and kept pushing. You don't hang out in that version much because the gap between that life and this one isn't one decision. It's 1,000 decisions, each so small in the moment that none of them felt like the moment that changed everything. There wasn't one moment. There was just the slow pileup of choices made under pressure, and the pressure was always real. And that's not an excuse, but it's a fact, and you've learned to live in the space between those two things. You've got $43 million sitting across accounts in 7 countries under names that aren't yours. You've got a network of over 100 people whose cooperation depends on you staying sharp and the implied threat of you knowing what you know about them. You've got a government client that needs you functional and has already made it crystal clear they have opinions about your alternatives. And you've got some unknown number of investigators in some unknown number of countries, piecing together a picture of something they can't fully see yet. You open your laptop this morning and there's a message from your contact in Georgian Customs. 3 words. The phrasing is casual, but it's the wrong kind of casual. It's the specific phrasing from a protocol you set up 18 months ago for one particular situation. And that situation was somebody in the network started talking. You close the laptop. You sit there for exactly 2 minutes. Then you open it back up and get to work, because this is what you do. Because the machine doesn't stop just because you're scared, because 40 million people need their power grid running and you are the infrastructure and you're not done yet. And you genuinely don't know anymore if that's a justification or just a diagnosis. You start typing a message. Somewhere out there, somebody's already typing one about you.